Well, it was a solid win for the Tennessee Vols. Everything was on the line, and it did not start out pretty. Tennessee was down 14-0 very early in the first 3 or 4 minutes of that game, but Tennessee kept their composure and came back and won convincingly. Maybe the most impressive win, maybe outside the Alabama game, I thought that Tennessee had, all things considered. Tennessee could have panicked. Tennessee could have they could have laid down, but they did not. I was just really impressed with Tennessee. I was really impressed with Nico. Impressed with the defense after they kind of struggled. They kind of settled down and just took that game over and basically eliminated Pavia and his influence on the game. So just a great game. Tennessee is firmly in the playoffs now, and honestly, I think they're going to host a playoff game now. Some things, right now as it stands, I think Tennessee will get to play at home. Worst case scenario, we go on the road. But we're in the playoffs, no doubt. So let's talk about this game. Tennessee wins 36-23 over a gritty Vanderbilt bunch, a Vanderbilt team that was only projected to win 3 games in the preseason. They won 6 games. They had wins over Auburn at Auburn. They had a win against Alabama. They beat Kentucky at Kentucky. They beat Virginia Tech at home. And Vanderbilt did all this playing the 9th hardest schedule in the country. So some major props to Vanderbilt and Clark Lee on what they've done this season. But Tennessee got the job done. In this game, when I look at the stats, third down efficiency for Tennessee, they were 11 for 15. I just thought that was phenomenal. Total yards in this game, Tennessee had over 500 yards at 538 yards. Tennessee limited Vanderbilt to 213 yards. As far as rushing, Tennessee had almost 300 yards rushing, 281 yards rushing. That's going to win you football games, folks. When you go over 250 yards rushing, you'll be hard-pressed to find a game you lose. That's just owning the line of scrimmage. And it was to start this game off, Vanderbilt was whipping us up front, but as the game went on, we started whipping them up front. Now, a couple things that I want to talk about that are not that good. Penalties, we had 102 yards worth of penalties. That's not good, and it it isn't getting any better, folks. I don't know what to tell you with us and penalties. Like, we get a lot of penalties. We just got to overcome it. I don't know. We had 2 turnovers in this game as well. That's not good. So we got to clean them things up. But we still look good nonetheless. You can eliminate those things. It'll be a lot better, though. Time of possession, Tennessee had the ball 33 minutes and 35 seconds. Vanderbilt had the ball 26 minutes and 25 seconds. That's just phenomenal. Tennessee's a quick-paced team. This year it's kind of just changed. Heupel's going slower with a freshman QB, running the ball more. Most of these games we're winning the time of possession, which years before we never won the time of possession. So Tennessee, just an amazing win. I'm really, really proud of the players in this game. Just a couple shout-outs to a couple players, in my opinion, that played well. Nico Iamaleava, 257 yards passing. I thought he was really good outside of maybe one interception that he threw. What a great game from Nico. Dylan Sampson, 178 yards rushing. He had a fumble, but you take out the fumble, had another phenomenal day. Dylan Sampson has ended the year with over 1,600 all-purpose yards. And I said in my preseason video that he'd get to 1,500. I thought that would be really hard to do. He's went over 1,600 all-purpose yards. What a great year. And not a Doak Walker Award semifinal. What a joke. What a joke that is. The Dylan Sampson has just been phenomenal this year. Cannot say good enough things against him. Defensive line dominant. Linebackers played well. Secondary. Jermod McCoy, best pickup we had this offseason. You can make an argument he's the best, maybe outside Travis Hunter, the best person in the secondary in the country right now as far as making interceptions and causing havoc and making big plays. But anyway, that's my recap of the Tennessee-Vandy game. Your Tennessee Vols are 10-2, headed to the playoffs. So they're firmly in, and they may host a playoff game. Now let's talk about the SEC Power Rankings. This is the last one I'm going to do this year. This is the end of the year, so this is my final rankings. Start with Mississippi State. They lost 26-14 to Ole Miss. End of the year 2-10. Mississippi State had a tough schedule. I will say this about Mississippi State: they never quit. They always played hard. I know when they played Tennessee, they played us hard. They played Ole Miss hard. They got a promising QB in Van Buren that I was impressed with at times this year, but they just don't have the Jimmies and the Joes to win it in the SEC right now. Jeff Lebby needs to regroup, get some players in the portal, get some better, get some people, out of high school, whatever, build that roster up. They got some work to do, but I do think they'll be better next year. And I will say one thing about Mississippi State: they played really, really hard, but it was a disappointing season at 16 in my power rankings. Number 15, Kentucky. They lost to Louisville 41-14. Ended the year with a 4-8 record. This Kentucky team, roster-wise, was much better than 4-8. Just a disappointing season. Bad quarterback play. Just could not make big plays. They weren't consistent. Very one-dimensional offense at times. They just could not generate. They were throwing it, they couldn't run it. They were running, they couldn't throw it. So it was just they struggled all year long. Mark Stoops may get fired with this season. I would not be surprised at 4-8. This was a bad year, and this breaks a streak of going to bowl games for Kentucky too. It's been several years they've been going to a bowl, and this year they're not. So, and now number 14, Auburn. Lost to Alabama 28-14. They're not going to a bowl game either. They ended the year at 5-7. Auburn has played well at times. They've been very competitive in games, and there was a handful of games that they could have won easily, but they just let the game. I mean, Missouri comes to my mind. The Oklahoma game comes to mind with Auburn. They just should have won those games, and they would be in a bowl game. He did not go out. Hugh Freeze did not go out and get him a proven quarterback. He stayed with Peyton Thorne, and I really think that cost him a good season. But 14, Auburn. Number 13, Oklahoma. They lost to LSU 37-17. Ended the year 6-6. And, here I thought Oklahoma had maybe figured things out after beating Alabama, and LSU quickly reminded them that they still are just not that good. LSU dominated this game. Oklahoma just offensively is just abysmal. They've been abysmal all year long. The injuries, I said in the preseason I didn't think Oklahoma was going to get to a bowl game. At least they're getting to a bowl game. The offensive line's been awful, receiver injuries, and I know Oklahoma fans are just glad this year's over, and hopefully they can have a better year next year, but they are going to a bowl. So Oklahoma at 13. Number 12, Arkansas. This is a team that's talented, but I think they didn't live up to the standards of kind of what we saw from that team early in the year and what they could have been. I thought they underperformed. They lost to Missouri 28-21. They did end the year at 6-6, so they are going to go to a bowl game. But just constant turnovers. When I think of Arkansas, I just think of just not closing the deal. Now they did beat my Tennessee Vols. That is one thing they can hang their hat on this season. But they could just never close games out. A lot of penalties. They had a lot of turnovers and just inconsistency. Number 11, Vanderbilt had lost to Tennessee 36-23. Jumped out 14-0 over Tennessee. Looked really good for them early on. But they have ended the year at 6-6. They're going to a bowl game. This is a massively successful season for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was projected to win 3 games in the preseason, and they won 6 games, and they did it playing the 9th hardest schedule in the country. Major props to Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. Phenomenal year. Number 10, Texas A&M. And I know a lot of people are saying, man, you got A&M at 10th, but A&M, they're on a 2-game losing streak. They looked awful against Auburn. They looked awful against Texas. They lost to Texas 17-7, and they did not score one offensive point. The touchdown they had was off a defensive interception that they returned for a TD. They did block a punt, but offensively they didn't do anything against Texas. They've got quarterback issues that they need to. Marcel Reed really ended the year, I think, playing poorly. Connor Wegman didn't play well this year. They ended the year 8-4, and I think this was a 10-2 team, honestly, and I think they underperformed. So they're at number 10. Number 9, LSU beat Oklahoma 37-17, ended the year 8-4. They did win pretty convincingly in the last couple games they played, but LSU, they lost several games they had no business losing. They opened the year losing to a bad USC team, and they choked a lot of games away that they should have won. But anyway, the end of the year 8-4. Brian Kelly is not getting the job done down there in Baton Rouge. Number 8, I can't believe I'm saying this, Florida. Florida is on like a 3-game win streak. They've beat Ole Miss, they beat LSU, and now they have beaten Florida State, which I knew they'd beat Florida State. But the end of the year 7-5. They're going to a bowl game. They have a great quarterback in DJ Lagway. They limited Florida State in this game to under 250 total points. And one thing that comes to mind with Florida right now is they're playing complementary football right now. They're playing good offensively. They're playing good defensively. They're playing good on special teams. They're just playing good football. They got a bright future ahead of them. And I cannot believe I'm saying that. But Florida, future looks good for Florida. Number 7, Ole Miss beat Mississippi State 26-14. End of the year 9-3. Ole Miss is very inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to get with this Ole Miss team. Just absolutely whipped Georgia at home a couple weeks ago, and then just looked awful the last couple weeks. Looked awful against Florida, and then they barely beat Mississippi State. They looked awful in this game, I thought. Offensively, they were very sluggish, didn't play very well. Lane Kiffin's time management right before halftime against Mississippi State, in my opinion, was awful. He just looks like he's just, I don't know. Lane Kiffin just seems like he's just disinterested. He doesn't seem like he's even coaching hard. That's just my opinion. So I've got them all the way at 7. Number 6, Missouri. Now this is a team that's playing better now. They did have the easiest schedule of all the SEC teams. But they did end the year 9-3. They ended the year beating Arkansas 28-21, and they were undefeated this year at home. So, Brady Cook ends his college career there with an undefeated home in his last year and beating Arkansas. And they've played better than they were earlier in the year, I thought. So give props to Missouri for ending the year at 9-3, and they're at number 6. Number 5, Alabama beat Auburn 28-14. Ended the year at 9-3. Alabama, tough schedule. Played the 16th hardest schedule in the country. You got to put that in there, but they lost some games they shouldn't have no business losing. Had no business losing to Oklahoma. That was kind of like Tennessee losing to Arkansas. It just makes no sense. They lost to Oklahoma, lost to Vanderbilt. Just can't lose those games. There is a chance they get in the college football playoffs, but I doubt it. Number 4, South Carolina. This might be the hottest team in the country right now. They went to Clemson and won 17-14. They ended the year 9-3. South Carolina played the 15th hardest strength of schedule this year. Major props to South Carolina. If you would have told me in the preseason that they were going to be 9-3, I'd have said you need to have yourself evaluated. You need to be checked in to a mental facility. But Lenore Sellers, just an amazing quarterback defensively with Kennard. And I think Smith, the other defensive end, just get after you. They cause issues. South Carolina is a really good team. And in my opinion, they should be in the college football playoffs. I think they've proven it. Even though they've got 3 losses, I think South Carolina deserves to be there. Number 3, Tennessee beat Vanderbilt 36-23. Ended the year at 10-2, and they are firmly in the playoffs, no doubt about it. May even host a game in the first round. It really looks like Nico's playing his best ball right now. I will say this: Vanderbilt was 95th in pass defense. But Nico made all the throws. I thought he played well. He was disciplined as far as what he was throwing. He wasn't, for the most part, really throwing a lot of interceptions. He had 1, but I thought he played really, really well. Had 4 TDs. So seems like Nico's playing better, and that's a good sign for Tennessee going into the playoffs. Number 2, Georgia. Barely escaped that win against Georgia Tech, 44-42. They ended the year 10-2. This is a team that played the 3rd hardest strength of schedule this year, just a brutal schedule. And they get to play Texas next week in the SEC championship game. If Georgia wins that, they're going to get a bye that first week. So in the playoffs, so that'll be big for them if they can win that game. But even if they do lose to Texas, Georgia's in. Number 1, Texas. They beat A&M 17-7. Ended the year 11-1. Kind of like Missouri, Texas had a very easy schedule, and they didn't really have any wins up to the A&M game that were very good. are very. I mean, Michigan maybe was your best win, but beating A&M at A&M, A&M a top 20 team. That gets you a good quality win there, and I think that really helps their resume. And I will say this: their defense looked really, really good. Texas has a very undervalued defense. They don't get the credit that they deserve. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't give them the credit in the preseason when I looked at the roster. But, man, that Texas defense is really good, so they're at number one. And you got a monster game with Texas and Georgia next week. I think you got 3 SEC teams in the playoffs for sure, possibly South Carolina. And that is my power rankings at the end here, 12 games through this SEC schedule. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll talk to you guys later.